Things and welcome to the October 3rd of the Human Rights Commission. We do have some of that, IT or IT. Yeah, it's probably on there. There we go. That should work. Thank you. And then Terrence? Oh, let's see. Somebody else says, can we admit? That's Brenda.
Hello.
Hello. Hi there.
Ah.
Okay, there it is. I want to recognize both of those faces.
Mhm.
Okay. Right, we'll take the attendance roll.
Want me to? Yes, you have all the names. I don't have all the names, but I already marked down who's here, so
We can take it from there. As you can tell, we have a wannabe secretary.
not a one of them. She's been asking until I was elevated.
Someone was unable to be with us because of a family, in her family, so she's was on the way out of town this afternoon. Okay, the land acknowledgement. As we gather today, we acknowledge that Eureka, California is an ancestral territory of the Wiyot people. We honor all indigenous people, territories, and sovereign governments that share governance within Humboldt County, California. We gather with respect and gratitude to those indigenous people. We thank and honor the indigenous caretakers of this land who continue to cherish and protect it. Their elders have instructed the young to consider the 7 generations ahead as they continue to protect the rights of the land and all people who live on it. We encourage all to align with and follow the lead of local indigenous communities as they steward the land and protect all of its natural resources. We'll have a moment of silence. Okay. Are there any agenda adjustments from anybody this evening?
Jim, I wonder if with Larry being absent, that we may want to hold off on talking about the quorum question.
I think that's probably, is there any objection to that? Larry can't join us this evening, so we'll take that off of the new business. Okay. We do not have our regular secretary with us this evening, so the minutes are not ready. They'll be presented at the next meeting. And we do not have our treasurer with us, so we'll have to wait until the next meeting for that report as well. Which finally brings us to our first guest speaker. We have 2 this evening, which is a little unusual for us, but since we had to reschedule our September meeting, that's why that happened. I'd like to first welcome Fernando Paz to our meeting, and he's going to bring us up to speed somewhat on the SAGE project. And Fernando, feel free to go ahead, and you have 10 or 15 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I think I know many of you in the room, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Fernando Paz. I am the Campus and Community Development Coordinator with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Cal Poly Humboldt. And we work in collaboration with Equity Arcata. So I have invited Max Hawk here as my colleague from Equity Arcata. So I'll let Max introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I think I have met Jim through the Humboldt Equity Consortium. My name is Max. I'm the interim network coordinator for Equity Arcata, and I work through the city of Arcata. So I'm kind of like Fernando's city side counterpart in the work that we've been doing with Equity Arcata and with students.
Part of the work that we've been doing in collaboration with Equity Arcata is to bridge the divide that often happens between campus and community. And part of the ways that we bridge that divide is by initiating this program we're calling SAGE, which is students advocating for equity.
Student Advisory Group for Equity.
Student Advisory Group for Equity. And the idea is that the students are rooted in the cultural centers on campus and are there to bridge what's happening on campus with what's happening in the community. And it's a new program that we just started last year. So this last academic year, we've gone through a series of growing pains in really articulating what it is that the students do. They are paid positions, so the students are being paid to be both on campus and doing cultural work there, and listening and being ears for the community on campus, as well as doing the similar thing Arcata. Part of what led us to be here at this meeting was an invitation by Guy, and part of the idea is that we understand that there's a need with the Humboldt Human Rights Commission for there to be younger voices and newer perspectives. And essentially that's in essence what SAGE is to be able to bring that perspective and that voice to different meetings where sometimes those voices are missing. And part of that has to do with how Equity Arcata has operated in the past and the way it's been structured to move in the future. Currently, there's a restructuring that's happening in Equity Arcata. My position as campus and community development coordinator is mostly rooted on campus, but currently I'm playing an interim role. Usually there would be a faculty equity advocate who would be in this role, but I'm playing that interim role in the meantime until we find somebody who will replace the previous equity advocate. And part of that work has been to work with Max and the initiatives that are coming out of Equity Arcata. So I'll let Max talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Equity Arcata on the city side is actually in the process of hiring a full-time Equity Arcata manager. That position will deal with both internal city processes as well as community outreach, and we're hoping SAGE management will be a role in that also, as we recruit more students to be able to be paid to bring their lived experiences and the voice of the students to maybe like groups like these, as well as direct feedback to us at the city and to ODEI. So we're hoping with the recruitment of this person, we can get some more students on board in the coming semesters and get the project rolling again.
There have been a series of points of excellence we would like to point out that have occurred since the initiation of SAGE. One of them has been the ongoing successes of the Home Away from Home initiative, which Equity Arcata has supported very strongly. And we just had recently another Home Away from Home. For those of you that aren't familiar, the Home Away from Home is a group of City of Arcata residents that, with the support of Equity Arcata, come together at the beginning of every semester, and I think throughout the academic year, to provide not just resources, but a place for students to feel more welcome in the community. So earlier this semester, there was a potluck dinner where students from campus came out to one of the community centers, and there was Home Away from Home people there who shared a meal, had conversations, and were able to really start to build community. Another point of excellence that just happened actually last night, as a matter of fact. Last night was the city of Arcata read a proclamation to recognize September 15th to October 15th as Latinx Heritage Month. That came out because earlier in the middle of September, Equity Arcata with ODEI was able to convene all the Latino affinity organizations into one space for the first time ever for them to see each other. So there were organizations as old as Latinos Unidos, which started way back in the 70s and 80s, to the new Latino Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the news organizations, which is about to launch officially here with the next couple of weeks. So we also had LatinoNet, Centro del Pueblo, Nuestra Comunidad, and at that gathering, there was a proposal made for there to be a proclamation. And all the leadership from these organizations were able to contribute or had the invitation to contribute to what the proclamation would say. Last night, the proclamation was read, and it was shared with some of the Humboldt County supervisors. And it sounds like the Humboldt County will be also doing their own proclamation recognizing Latinx Heritage Month within the next the next meeting or so. The reason I mention that is because students are witnessing this. Students are having a part in the conversations that are happening, and students are having a say in how these things play out. There were students present at the Tardeada, which is the gathering that we had with all the Latino affinity organizations, where they were present and able to share their word, share their perspective, and share the work that they do. So though we are in the process of restructuring and my position and the position with the city are in the process of getting filled, there is a hope and actually an aspiration and an aim that when the new structure for SAGE gets completed, because there will be professional staff there, that we are having these conversations and the possibility to invite students from campus, primarily students with different identity markers, whether those identity markers are gendered, raced, or classed in different ways. People from different perspectives, different histories, different cultures will have a place where their voices can be heard, where their culture is affirmed, and where they can contribute to ongoing conversations to build the kind of community that we all want, a community where people feel safe, where people feel welcome, when people can thrive and be nourished to be the fullest, most authentic self. That's part of the aspiration and the work that we're doing. Max has been involved in this longer than I have. When Max was a student, was worked in our office, but then has been able to grow and share and grow their career into being part of Equity Arcata. And is somebody that I know I hear very proud of, because Max has achieved quite a bit and it has the potential to go even further. So I want to offer Max also an opportunity to share a little bit more on the history of Equity Arcata and the potential for our partnership moving forward.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah, I think it really hits home talking about student and like younger folks engagement. Obviously, I bought in pretty early with working through ODEI, and I think that's something that we're happy to be able to do at Sage, is provide like paid opportunities for students and young people to be involved in these kind of spaces. I think otherwise, it's always difficult to draw people in, and having that kind of outlet is a very encouraging way to get more feedback. And Equity Arcata as a whole has been an organization that's struggled with that same issue, whether it be with young people or with community members, volunteers in general, just getting people to come out and participate in something when they're not being paid for it, with all of the busy things that people are asked to do in diversity spaces, is a challenge. So that's also part of the structural changes that we keep referencing, are being able to have a full-time position to really work on this engagement. Someone who has the entire week dedicated to figuring out ways to get both our paid student buy-in as well as just keeping people in the loop on what's going on, both with the city, the university, what's going on here at the county. So I think having these positions filled will be a good step towards having avenues for younger people to be involved in these spaces.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you guys are working on that and that you invited us to speak here.
Are there any questions, comments, and anything? Any questions you may have of us? I think we have like about 5 minutes left of our time. Oh, we can't hear you. It's on mute. It still can't hear you.
Yeah, I think it's still muted.
No, we heard you earlier. I'm not sure what's going on.
I'll message Jim and tell him can't hear. Let's see. Still can't hear.
Maybe now? Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, so from your perspective, how would you see a good next step for your working in collaboration with the Human Rights Commission?
I think for now it's just carrying the message forward for us. We at this moment have technically one SAGE student because of all the restructuring that's happening. The city of Arcata is in the process of hiring their new coordinator, which I think today they had the last interviews. So as soon as the person gets hired on and they get their feet under them and get really well established with what Equity Arcata is doing and their partnership with the university, I think there will be an opportunity to have the students do additional more work. So having said all that, I'm thinking, what do you think, Max? Probably by the end of the year at the latest, maybe sooner.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think when this new person comes on, a big part of my role will be to bring forward things like that have been ongoing before they were onboarded, and maybe have them come, have them
Mhm.
be involved. I think by the end of the year, they will
Mhm.
have a good like foundational knowledge to be able to pick up the new projects. Like,
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
One thing I'd like to add to the mix, you started out by talking about adding more youthful members to the dialogue, not just the Human Rights Commission, but in general. And we are working through the Academy of the Redwoods to develop a youth human rights commission. And I know they would love to expand to include elements of Cal Poly as well. Uh, so that's something I think we may look forward to offering in the near future. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm coordinating the ad hoc committee that is creating that youth commission. And one of the things, we're just in our first planning year, but the idea is to have high school or early college students involved and representation across identities, but also across the county. So definitely there will be opportunities, and we'll be reaching out once the youth that are starting the group get a little bit more grounded on what they want to see forward. We're really working to have this be a youth-led, youth-centered group. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
That was one of the visions having worked with young people at the university and having projects be youth-led is really important and critical. But the second part of that is also being mentored, right? You can't just, it's because I've been part of both where folks will say youth-led and then they abandon the youth and then they end up, somewhere unhealthy. But always having that strong relationship, right, with and that's where we found initiatives to be most successful when there is that reciprocity between the young folks and the older folks, especially when those bonds are culturally rooted. Being in my previous position, I was the coordinator for the Latino Center on campus, and being able to have those familial kind of ties, not familial, but like understanding where an elder sits culturally in the community and where young people sit culturally and how those relationship and that communication happens. So yes, absolutely led by youth and mentored by us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Peter.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that Ron White's leaving, and he's been such a leader. Wondering if that leaves any hold for you.
you said Ron White, or yeah. I mean, for Equity Arcata, we're sad to lose him for sure. He's been on our board since its relatively recent inception, and that definitely brings up a spot that we're going to look to fill. Being such a young board, I think we're going to figure out what kind of folks we want to bring into that space. Can't replace him, that's for sure.
You can fill the spot, but it won't be. But yeah, absolutely, you can't replace him. Yeah.
Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Yes.
We appreciate your input, and we look forward to collaborating more in the near future.
Same. Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll turn to our IT expert, Oh, man.
That was, you didn't know that was in your job.
Exactly.
description.
Put it on the resume.
It's usually me, so I'm really happy.
That's very well. I'm very happy to welcome Billy Hansel. Thank you. Humboldt County Sheriff. Yeah. And to share a few thoughts with us and possibly a few questions.
Well, I'm always happy to come and speak with Human Rights Commission. This is something that, you know, I want to make myself available and my staff. It's something that I think is important to share thoughts that may be in the community and also ask questions. And, you know, there's there's some talk about sheriff oversight lately. I think up the Human Rights Commission as the reason why, you know, one of the reasons why I don't think a sheriff oversight board is necessary right now, because you guys are in place to ask tough questions that the other community members can't ask, and also making sure that we at the sheriff's office understand the perspective of human rights, to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. And so there are no questions that are off the table. There's nothing that's here that's I can't disclose besides active investigations and those kind of things, you know, where it might jeopardize a criminal case. But as far as our philosophies, our policies, our, you know, the Constitution and how we respect the Constitution and how we deal with different events and people in different situations. My goal is to educate our community so that public trust is a part of Islam is with the sheriff's office. Trust is something that's so important yet so easily lost in a community, right? We've seen it over and over again, and so asking questions of the sheriff's office, asking questions of me, demanding answers for certain things is within our ability to do. And so that's the reason why I'm here. I make myself available at any given time. And so I would not be opposed to being on your calendar more often than not, because I know people have questions about law enforcement action. Cal Poly provided a lot of that, you know, of those type of questions of what's normal. We don't see those kind of events unfold the way that they did. And then how the action, you know, how that transpired and what was our, you know, what was the plan and how we acted, was that in accordance with the law and our policy and all those things. It's very important for us to be able to provide that to the community. And just to touch on that just real fast, it's, you know, the sheriff's office was asked to come in to assist Cal Poly in that situation. It wasn't our event to do it from the beginning. It was Cal Poly's, and they handled things differently than I would have handled it. And we had an after action report done and an after action review. I was there, provided my inputs about things and decisions that were made. Of course, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? We always can see something that we can do better once something's unfolded. But what we do know is that, you know, there needs to be more planning. There needs to be more preparedness for those type of events, for all departments, big and small. None of us are big enough to handle anything like that ourselves. So we're always going to have teamwork, cooperation with our law enforcement partners and coordination to make sure that everyone is rolling in the same direction, that there is clear leadership, clear policy, and clear direction, you know, to the people that are actively protesting, to the community, as well as to our law enforcement officers. So all those things are going to be very important when we're moving into the future. So one of the topics that we were going to discuss tonight is maybe neutral observers, you know, being a part of these kind of activities. I fully support that. Absolutely. It would only benefit our community, only benefit the operation. I would encourage the Human Rights Commission to kind of choose a core group right now, core group of leaders that we could actually, you know, kind of bring into our leadership and to discuss the goals and mission of the neutral observers and also provide training. Because one thing that a neutral observer should understand is some basic tactics, some basic understanding of the law, of what unlawful assemblies look like, and then what transpires after, right? Because how it's unfolding that past, you know, and we're small, we don't have a whole lot of issues up here, but we do have planned protests, and we do have, you know, a lot of coordination that happens when there is a protest. In the past, we used to get pre-warnings on certain protests and say, we're going to protest at this gate at this time or out in front of this location because of this. We expect there's going to be 10 people that want to be arrested. And, you know, so we're going to help coordinate that, because so when we have those kind of interactions, then we understand the rules of engagement, who's in charge, and how we're going to coordinate all this. The ultimate goal is people want to get arrested because it goes in the news, and things, you know, their movement gets the traction that they believe is necessary in order to get their message out. And so we can accommodate those sometimes, you know, and how it works, right? And then people go to jail with minimal force used, and their goal is met, our goal is met, peace is kept, roadways, sidewalks, businesses are opened, but yet they were able to get their word out. And that has happened in the past. Otherwise, there's spontaneous protests that come up because of certain events. There's people that are unruly, and then the unlawful assembly happens when there is there's violence associated or some kind of crime is associated. Vandalism, assaults, blocking, trespassing, those kind of things where we have to take action, and where we have to provide notice, and we have to provide a means of escape, and all these things in order for us to take enforcement action, in order to establish a peaceful boundary, or, you know, restore peace to a situation. And those are the kind of things that we want to educate people on, and how that looks and how that looks. And then questions can be asked at any given time. What about this? What about that? And then those, so in the midst of a potential protest, is those neutral observers can come to our leadership and say, this is what we're seeing. This is what we have questions about. And can these people leave? Are these people free to go? Where's a safe boundary? Where can the press go? All these things that maybe someone has questions that they're willing to ask you that they would never ask us, right? And we can help resolve situations, or at least get situations going in the right direction. So I would definitely encourage that, and I look forward to hearing from you regarding that, because I think it will only benefit our community and help educate our community with how we can be responsive in the future. So yes, and that was one of the things. The other thing is homelessness, right? There's a lot of people with a lot of ideas about how to solve homelessness, right? And there are avenues here in the county and within the city to provide assistance to different people based upon their current need. And so there are avenues. There's very few avenues that actually will help someone without rules or policies in place. And sometimes when we have people that are homeless, they don't necessarily want to adhere to the rules of, let's say, the rescue mission or Betty Chin or Teen Challenge or Department of Health and Human Services in one of the hotels. And so, you know, there are other areas like Arcata House Partnership. There's other areas where maybe we can open up, but the biggest thing that I think that we have to deal with here is drug addiction and mental health. Drug addiction and mental health has entrapped so many people and enslaved so many people within our county that should be our number one focus, is drug treatments, mental health treatments. And I think this dual diagnosis of substance use disorder and mental illness has become an out of control epidemic here in the state of California. We have Prop 36 that's coming up. And of course, I've been an advocate. I'm not going to advocate here for that, but the one thing I can do is educate everyone regarding what it would do. And that would change the laws to provide an avenue that judges could sentence multiple offenders to potential prison time or jail time, or they could choose treatment. Okay, so there is a goal of treating the people that have these substance abuse issues by having consequences hanging over their head, essentially is what it comes down to. Because under Prop 47, drug offenses, even if you stack up, are still misdemeanors. And people know the system, and you can essentially be on probation and agree to do a program, but still be on probation and never do that program. And the worst thing that can happen to you is that you would have a violation of probation, which would give you a day in jail and a new court date. And then they give you new court dates, which is 3 months down the road, and you don't show up for that court date. And then it's another probation violation. And this repeats over and over and over again to the point where they can never, successfully complete probation and never have to go to a program. So there's no incentive to go to a program right now. Prop 36 would change that. And I think that if we can help the drug addiction problem, we're going to see the homeless problem get better. Never solved, but it would get better. There are so many times when we have loved ones that are trying to reach out and find we have parents, family members trying to reach their loved ones that are homeless, drug addicted, that are on the streets. And oftentimes when they actually make it to county jail, we're getting phone calls saying, please keep them. If you do not keep them, they will die. They're going to overdose. They're going to walk in front of a car. They're going to do anything, to try and get their drugs, and to the detriment of their self. And a lot of people actually think that jail is a benefit for their loved one because they know where they are, they're safe, and there's actually drug treatment in jail. There's mental health treatment in jail now. Everything that they need to be successful and to get them sober and sober-minded, we have in our correctional facility. And so that's one thing that I think that we need to kind of educate our society on and benefit on, that we're not looking at punishment for people that are addicted. What we're looking for is that moment of sobriety for them to actually get help that they need. And sometimes that's our correctional facility. Sometimes it's a timeout, essentially, for our loved ones when they can't get clean on the street. And so that's what we call the gift of jail to me. If your loved one is really addicted, the gift of jail in that time really does make a difference. And so that's just, again, one of many ideas and things that we have. I think we have great partnerships here in the county. We have a lot of opportunities for people to get treatment. We have a lot of opportunities for people to get mental health. But they have to make a choice for themselves to seek that treatment and to go on that path. And so
we do have a question for you, Lisa Sundberg. She's not really in San Francisco, I don't think, but
it's a beautiful view.
She has a question for you.
Thank you. Hi, Sheriff Consul. Thank you for being here today with us. I'll try to keep the comment specific, but I also have some other questions, and I know we're limited on time with you, but I do agree that mental health is a big problem with homelessness. I had the opportunity to visit the top rehab facility in LA, and they do kind of a triage down there inside of that, because their streets are filled with homeless people, but their rehab facility triages them in three particular areas. And one is healthcare. And if mental health or addiction is one of the issues, then that is something that they have the option to be treated with. But also their learning disabilities or their ability to provide having job skills and or whether or not they can read or write were three of the top things that they looked at. But there was a 7-month program that they went through, and everybody that went through the program couldn't do drugs or anything like that, but it was successful. And they have a great story for the homeless shelter that's down in LA. So I just wanted to steer you in that direction of some success stories. But I also want to make you aware, and this is for all of us here in mental health treatment and or drug addiction. specifically drug addiction. I had a son that was addicted to prescription drugs, and we have to open our minds to other types of treatment outside of opioid, watered down opioids, which is pretty much your Suboxone and things of that nature. I served on United Indian Health Board for 6 years. My mom did for 41. And these are the types of treatments that we're seeing, and they're not as successful. They get more addicted to the treatment than they do actually getting clean. So those we have to just be aware, as people being concerned about healthcare and people getting treated. I just wanted to make us aware of that, because there's other types of treatments that are out there that I wish that were legal in the United States, but they're just not. Which is like there's a ibogaine and things of that nature that are available outside the country, but you can't do it in the country. So those are some of the things I hope that we would consider somewhere down the road. The other thing I wanted to share with you is a concern that I have about the homeless that have gotten moved out or wherever they're being scattered, but they're showing up on Hammond Trail. And, while we're going to be looking at Hammond Trail for being transport, a new place for people to walk and get to and from places, biking and things of that nature, it might behoove, you guys to consider having somebody on a bike, for safety, and or just wellness checks, because they're sleeping on the Hammond Trail is what's happening. So I just want to make you aware that I have friends that live on the trail, and they're looking at doing Airbnbs on the trail and promoting the trail. And yet that's kind of like there's a beautiful part of Hammond Trail, and then there's the dark side of what's happening with the trail as the homeless start to disperse and find new places to live or sleep, at nighttime. So I just wanted to mention that. And if I could say, I want to get a couple of points out as it relates to Indigenous people. I wanted to say that one of my colleagues is Danielle B. Hill Maston, and she served in a program for murdered and missing people. And one of the things that she mentioned when we visited was the need for a policy change inside of the sheriff's department when it comes to tribes, and reporting out immediately people that are missing in our communities. Apparently there's some policy within the sheriff's department that it has to go through the sheriff before it can be announced that somebody is missing. And the tribes feel that that they're in violation of this policy whenever they go out and put the word out immediately. They're wanting to announce it, on social media, because they're able to find people within 48 hours once it gets posted. But having to go through some process inside the sheriff's department is working against time. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that. So if there could be some kind of collaboration between the sheriff's department and the tribes on murdered and missing people, that would be really a great move on your part. And then there are more resources that are needed to go into murdered and missing people from the tribes. And so there was a request that you look into funds from FBI and the Bureau of Indian Affairs to collaborate with them. Anyway, so there. Thank you. That's a lot. Sorry. But I wanted to get it all out while you're here.
No, that's all good. I appreciate, your story about your son. And then, yeah, I agree that there's definitely some alternatives that the state could consider as far as drug treatments. Exchanging one drug for another drug, I completely agree with you. Sometimes it just takes that little, that edge off someone who is addicted to heroin or an opioid, and Suboxone has worked to take the edge off. But yeah, we want to make sure that we get them off all drugs and functioning without the use of pharmaceuticals. That would be definitely the goal. Thank you for the information about the Hammond Trail. I was unaware that there's homeless actually on the trail. I thought my direction to my deputies were to make sure that trail is consistently swept, and making sure there's no homeless that's on the trail. It's illegal for them to sleep on the trail. and that public property. We are working with the McKinleyville's Community Services District on making sure that their new community forest is properly marked and making sure that there's no homeless that are living up there in that area. So I will double check, Lisa, to make sure that that our guys are consistently patrolling Hammer Trail in the McKinleyville area, making sure that no one is sleeping along the trail, and that's not a safe place for them. And so there's other places that they can camp, and that's not one. As far as policy change goes, I know Danielle Vigil Maston, we've worked together, and so one thing that anyone can report anyone missing. They don't have to report them through the sheriff's office, and they can use social media and those kind of things. I am one of the only sheriffs that actually deputize tribal officers. And so they don't have to go through the sheriff's office. They go through one of our deputies to report them in the statewide and national systems, missing person systems, and in their database. And all we need is a signed missing persons form, and so they get published there. And even tribal police, not even a deputized tribal police, can ask the state to do what we call a feather alert, which is basically a way of broadcasting through text messages and reader board signs and social media. Anyone who is Native American who is missing and under somewhat suspicious circumstances, and tribal police can even ask for that, and they don't have to go through the sheriff's office now. So a lot of things have changed. I'm a part of the state sheriff's tribal liaison committee. I'm the chair of that committee. And so I'm working with tribes all up and down the state to make sure that we're consistently doing our part. I was very disappointed this week when Governor Newsom vetoed the tribal police law enforcement bill. This law enforcement bill would have provided a pilot program to the Yurok tribe, potentially the Hoopa tribe, Blue Lake tribe, and then the Coyote Valley tribe, where they could have been state peace officers. They wouldn't have to go through the sheriff's office anymore. They could be state peace officers, and they could take all the things that you're talking about. But the governor vetoed it. And I'm not sure why, because the attorney general supported it. I supported it. Matt Kimball supported it. The sheriff of Mendocino County, and we were the only counties that were affected from it. Again, it was a pilot program for 3 years, and for some reason, the governor, I guess, didn't want our tribal police to have peace officer powers. So that was very frustrating. But that would have definitely helped in this circumstance. And I promise you that that we will definitely be working on the missing and murdered Indigenous persons cases. We just saw this week. We had information go out regarding Chick White and the missing persons case. It's something that we were continuously highlighting. I recognize that things weren't done correctly in the past. I can only control what we're doing now. I have 2 seasoned investigators that are actually assigned to our cold cases and our missing persons cases. And so they are double checking and going over all these previous cases and trying to fix some of the cases, even 30, 40 years old. And looking at those to see if there's evidence, see if there's things we can follow up on. But I assure you that all the cases, that we're getting now, we're doing everything humanly possible to investigate those cases and to make sure that we try and find people. Of course, we're not there when people become missing. We don't know. And so we actually, have to investigate them kind of like homicides. But sometimes people are missing because they want to be missing. And we have to take that in consideration, but we still push the information out as much as possible and try to get people to provide us information and follow up on whatever we can. So I appreciate it. Again, if there's things that you hear that are slipping through the cracks or not meeting your expectations, you can always call me, email me, and I'll be able to look at something. I wish we bat 1,000 every single time, but we don't. We miss the mark. And we have a lot of new deputies that are out there right now. And so they need experience as well. And sometimes they need to do, sometimes they need to do things over because they didn't do it right the first time. And so they're building their experience. And the only way we find out they didn't do it right is if we get complaints. So
We have at least one more question from Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, first, thank you so much. I've learned about quite a bit today, and I really appreciate your just forthrightness in talking to us about these issues. And I've got two comments and
Yes.
two questions. So one comment is I'd like to second Lisa's comment. I like the Hammond Trail almost daily, generally in the mornings, and it varies. It's not that there's a lot there all the time, but we can have people living there for weeks and even months sometimes on a regular basis. So again, just to kind of reinforce it.
Can I have you and Lisa, you guys are my eyes and ears. Okay, after you're done, if you want to give us a call and say there's a homeless person living at this location on the Hammond Trail, we need to hear that and we will follow up with that. I expect our guys to be out there every day virtually, and if it sounds like they're not doing it. And I know we're busy, but there's always time to double check that to make sure that people are moved along, because they can't establish residency, in a public space. And so sometimes there's people that just need an overnight location and they're going to camp out overnight. Well, in the morning we can move them along. So
Okay, and it of course varies, but one actually wheelchair bound person was living there for at least 2 months.
okay.
So, okay, so the second question or the second comment is I was with neutral observers during the timber wars,
Sure.
kind of in the 70s,
Yeah.
mostly working with the ACLU. And I just want to kind of affirm that we were really grateful to have a good relationship with law enforcement, and we would look forward that if this emerges, I would like to see that we continue that relationship. I think it's very important. As far as questions, you mentioned that, say, with the law enforcement oversight committee, that the commission could really play a lot of that role. What I'd like to ask is, what do you see as the real downside of an independent law enforcement oversight committee?
Well, what I see is an extra layer of bureaucracy within our government when you have a non-binding committee that is appointed by the board. To me, it's not necessary. Of course, I will meet with anyone. If there's an established committee, I will meet with those people. But I just think there's everything that's concerning of this committee is a concern to, this committee that's already in place as the Human Rights Commission, and also the grand jury. There's questions that are getting brought up to the grand jury every year, and I'm there to answer them. I'm there to ask tough questions and do independent investigations and then provide analysis and recommendations. And that's the government oversight board is really the grand jury. What I like to think that I am the person that's elected by the people to be that independent observer of the sheriff's office. And I didn't come from the I didn't come from the inside. I came from the outside of the sheriff's office. I came in through Mike Downey to be that person to help him change the organization. And though it's been my quote organization for the last 7 years, I've been responsible for that as the sheriff. I still look at this is my independent function. I am the person appointed and elected by the people to be the oversight. So it doesn't look good to me. I call it out and I say we can do better. Mm-hmm. And you can see based upon, I have to publish internal affairs investigations if they meet certain criteria. Excessive use of force, when I have to fire someone, shootings, whatever it is. And I've had disagreements with my own command staff with how we should treat something because they didn't see it as excessive use of force. Mm-hmm. I saw it as excessive use of force. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this as the lens, only as the expert on law enforcement, but also through the lens of our community. And if I look at something and I say, as a community member, I know that we need to be justified under the law, but this is atrocious. This is excessive. This is unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And if it's excessive, then it doesn't meet our use of force guidelines, whether or not he had justification or not. If I think it's excessive, the community thinks it's excessive, then I'm going to say it's excessive. And I've sustained findings that my own command staff said it was a justifiable use of force. And so that's the kind of thing that I hope the community has trust in me. Unfortunately, I've had people that I fired because I believe that if the community knew what these people did, these cops did, they would be unhinged and they would riot in the street because of the stuff that these people did. And an arbitrator gave these deputies their jobs back. And I'm just blown away about that. And outside of my, outside of my control. And so that is frustrating to me. I wish the laws were changed. I think every law enforcement officer should be an at-will employee. I don't think there should be any job protections for law enforcement. And if you want to correct law enforcement in California, I think we should pay them well. I think we should educate them. And I believe that they should be at will. And there should be, again, no job protection. If you screw up, if you do an excessive use of force, if you break the public's trust, you should be fired. You cannot get that back again. And so, which I believe, the legislature has that ability to do that. But instead of giving, the executives that authority, or the county or the cities that authority, they're putting more restrictions on us and our ability to do our jobs, and which makes it more difficult. So that's my soapbox.
All right. Well, thank you. You raised some really good points, and I think some good things to consider. I will just kind of give a personal comment, and which may not be that change that much of your thinking. Being here on the Human Rights Commission, I'm also on the civil grand jury at the moment. I've been in the past. What I see is that we have interests. We don't have real specialization in dealing with law enforcement issues. A number of years ago, when I was on the Human Rights Commission earlier, I chaired a committee with the sheriff and the Arcata police chief and Humboldt police chief, Eureka police chief, to see if we could work out what sort of an oversight committee there might be that could be independent. And when you have the public really feeling, that if it's just in the law enforcement hands, even a very good one, that you may not get that total independence. And it never really came to pass. But there is, to me, a difference between having, say, people who have interest and maybe some background, but those who perhaps are really more heavily grounded in the real nuts and bolts of law enforcement. So anyway, just the thought to put in there.
Thank you.
The second question I have is on the homeless issue, and I really appreciate what you have provided here. What I would, I think, ask in just an open-ended question is, if you really have the authority and the control, what would be the next 1 or 2 or 3 steps that you think can begin to seriously address homelessness under your jurisdiction?
Yes. Well, one thing is, and I've changed my philosophy on like a safe parking area. I used to always say, okay, no, that's only going to cause more issues. But I believe there should be a temporary space, within the city jurisdiction or somewhere close to services where some people can go, right? Some people can go that's going to be safe, right? And so yes, there's going to be rules, but a safe campground, a safe parking area where it's going to be somewhere where it's lit, there's bathrooms, and so people can go there to feel safe and they can actually relax. And then there's connected to services. That's what I think would be ideal, because then we can direct people, right? When someone parks in front of someone's house or goes into a park and says, I just need a space for the night. I just need, a place just to lay my head and just feel okay about it. We can direct them. You go to this spot here, you can get a space for the night, 2, 3, and if you need something longer, we're going to steer you towards maybe some longer term. I think that would be a valid place, and that would be a superb start. I think there should be, like Lisa was saying, there's down in LA, gosh, forget the place or whatnot, but they have like what essentially is like a navigation center, okay, where you can walk in, whatever your hang up is, whether it's mental illness, whether it's homelessness, whether it's drug addiction, you walk through the door and they're going to help you or steer you toward the services that can best suit your needs that are currently the most important. And then because there's a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of non-government organizations, there's a lot of even government organizations that can help people. They just don't know where to start. And I'm happy to say that the county and city are partnering with a facility down on 3rd Street that they're going to build, and it's going to serve this purpose. And has a navigation center, a day center where people can go during the day to get help, get needs, to get a shower, to help prop them up, you know, when they're hopefully ready to seek services and to get help and assistance that's necessary. And so I think this is where we start. But also, when they intersect the criminal justice system, there has to be accountability. There has to be, by not holding people accountable because, or just easily dismissing them because they have drug addiction or they're homeless or mental health. We want to help people to get better, whatever that is. And so they're not making the same mistake twice. And so if someone does commit an offense, hold that person accountable for that offense. Vandalism, thefts, battery, whatever it is, hold that person accountable and steer them towards, you know, rehabilitative efforts. If those don't help it, if he continues down the road, there has to be continued consequences, more progressive consequences, until the person, you know, gets what they need. Turning your back on something or not dealing with something is only going to exacerbate the problem. So, you know, we have people that are addicted and we know people that are addicted to different drugs, but they never intersect the system, the criminal justice system, and we don't hear about it. And they've navigated, but it's those people that are intersecting the criminal justice system that violate the rights of others. We have to deal with those people. We have to hold them accountable because they're making other people's lives, affected. And so that's where criminal justice comes in. When you affect the rights of others, that's when criminal justice has to come in to remedy the situation. We're the ones that have to deal with that and stand in the gap. And so that's where we're really, I think, missing the mark here. And what I hate about it is all of us in the room are so, I guess, apathetic at times that we see the deterioration of people around us. We see people sleeping on the street or even passed out. Maybe they're even, going through overdose, but we walk right by them every day. And it's just become a part of the landscape. And people with mental illness screaming, yelling, intimidating others. And we don't even bother calling law enforcement anymore because it's a part of the landscape now. And I hate that. We have a beautiful county, we have a beautiful city here. And I want people to feel safe, to be able to walk up and down the streets and be able to navigate everything and bring their children down here without having, people be intimidated by, people with mental illness or seeing people addicted to drugs or drinking in the streets or all those things. So
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
All right. Thank you.
And Guy, that's just real quick.
Yes.
I know we're running pretty long. This program, is anything going on with that still?
It's a great program. We just lost one of our main missed clinicians to Eureka because they pay more. And so it's frustrating.
Okay,
Because
citywide, they have it, but
citywide, yeah, we had county. Yeah, so county has a missed program. We'd love to be able to expand it. We're utilizing that. It's a great program so we have someone that has mental health or is having mental health crisis. We can go in there, stabilize the situation, and then MIST comes in with their clinicians or mental health, comes in and they help the person long term. Because we put band-aids on situations. We take care of situations just, to make sure people are safe. And if we have to take someone to slip or virus because they're a danger to themselves or others, we pass it off and we're done. Or maybe they don't meet the criteria. And we give them a reference card and say, please call mental health. We don't follow up. That's not our job. But we have missed as a part of it, they follow up and they actually try and help. And so it's a program that I just hope the county would continue to support. And hopefully that we can get more people that are willing to step in there to help, because it does make a difference.
Couple follow-ups, with you. This was one I emailed you quite a while ago, the Nelson shooting, I think that was a CHP officer.
Yeah.
Did we ever get a DOJ report on it? Because I've never seen it.
Nope, not yet. So this is part of the new 1506 investigation when someone is unarmed and they are killed by law enforcement, and the Department of Justice takes over the investigation. And are we being recorded right now? Is this being recorded?
Yes.
Yes, it is. I'm going to say that the Department of Justice was not prepared to come up on an Indian reservation and properly investigate that case.
So this is why it's been hanging out.
Well, it's hung up because they have a lot of investigations going on. Okay. Let me just say that I talked to their assistant director. I talked to people from DOJ. They recognize some of the mistakes that they made up there. But these investigations are taking a lot longer than even the attorney general expected. And so they're difficult. They're difficult cases. And so the Humboldt is trying to figure that out right now and because he's making a determination on all these cases, whether or not they're justified or not. So it's still up in the air as far as whether or not it's a justified shooting. DOJ will issue a report and their findings, and it should be hopefully more sooner than later. It's been how long now? Over a year?
Over a year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. The other I was just going to ask, just to follow up, you mentioned with the Cal Poly, the occupation over there. See if I can find it in my notes. Too many notes. I shouldn't be taking notes. But you were talking about that there's been some evaluation on what happened.
Yeah.
Now, are you talking about the report we read in the paper from Eureka, or is this separate?
So Eureka had their own independent investigation based upon what their unit saw. What we're looking at is we had an after-action report based upon the initial response, the occupation, and then the after response to basically clear out the campus.
Is that available for us to see?
I have not seen the report as of yet. We just talked about it. It was supposed to be written up and provided, as an internal document. But I'm sure that it would be a public record that they would have to disclose. And
Say they who?
Cal Poly.
Oh,
So Cal Poly ran it.
okay.
It was their after action. They were very reflective, very, just making sure that, sometimes critical of their own decisions. There were some things that went very, very well. And so we talked about those. We talked about the coordination, lessons learned. All those things were just a part of the after action. And so they're supposed to type it up so we all can read it and take something. So.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I've been meeting with the new president, so I will ask him on that.
Lisa's had her hand up and then I.
And you have one also? Okay, Lisa, if you have a quick follow-up question, we're gonna have to wrap this up as soon as we can.
No, I just wanted to ask and it would suggest that, maybe something that our committee could do or our commission could do is maybe work with the sheriff's department and local services. Maybe this has already been done, but I would love to see more, maybe a fund with a card or a fund that would fund the development of a card that people can hand out for resources to the homeless people so that they know where to go. Because some people don't know where these services are. And maybe that could be something we could ask for funding for from the county board of supervisors. Thank you.
Yeah, so Department of Health, Human Services, as well as law enforcement agencies, we have that card, and we do have it out, handed out.
Great. Okay, great, super. Love to get some.
Sounds good.
Just let me know. Then I'll get you some.
Just very quickly, I do a lot of walking and sometimes a lot of walking downtown. I do see people who are muttering or obviously talking to themselves and not aware of reality and so forth. And did I understand you to say that you expect that to be reported to you?
No. So what I'm saying is that there are times when people will yell and scream and intimidate others while they're in that psychosis. We see that downtown. We see that along 4th and 5th Street. I have my offices right on 4th Street, and I have people yelling and screaming right in front of my office all the time. And they are scaring people, intimidating people, running after people. Those are kind of, and other people just kind of avoid it and then walk the other direction.
And how would that, if I did see someone,
Yes.
something like that, how would I report it and what would happen immediately?
But if there's a unit available, a police unit available, they'd be dispatched for disturbing the peace call at that location. We would need to know the description of the person and what they're saying or doing that's disturbing the peace. And so yelling, screaming, intimidating, threatening behavior, all those things are valid reasons why law enforcement should go and contact someone.
And you just call the sheriff's department?
You call 911 if it's happening right then and there. Says, I want to report someone who's disturbing the peace, that's threatening people on this street, this location. And then.
Thank you. I think that's something that people really don't know that they should do.
Sure.
I didn't know that. I didn't know to call 911.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that we can make available as one of the things that an individual person can do.
We want people to call. We want people to call it because it's, though we are busy, it's like this is your city too, right? And so we want you all to feel safe. We want our community to feel safe, but we don't want there to be a deterrent to not go downtown shopping or to go in a certain location because of the people that are there that are intimidated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a person online that wishes to ask a question. I hope I can make that possible.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the agenda and I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding what agenda topic we're on right now. Is it the guest speaker?
We're just wrapping up the second guest speaker of the evening, and we'll be moving on to the rest of the agenda.
And I apologize, I missed the beginning of it, but I want to challenge that calling the police when someone is obviously having a mental health crisis is actually not best practice. And I know that, law enforcement is wishing for that to be the case, but that is not what all the community thinks is the best response. And in my experience, law enforcement showing up when someone is having a mental health crisis only exacerbates the problem. And so I want us to, learn more about mental health services and that we can actually call them directly and not just law enforcement. So I just don't want us to think that law enforcement is the only option as a community response to something like that.
What's your question?
The sheriff, like asking a question.
So as of right now, we don't have 24-hour mental health response. So who would go and deal with the situation if law enforcement wasn't there? Believe me, I would love to have a 24-hour mental health response. I don't think it's our job to go after mental health people that are in psychosis. I don't think we're the best trained. I don't. But in the county of Humboldt, this is what we're required to do because we do not have 24-hour mobile mental health for Humboldt County. And so if you believe that, if you believe what you're saying here, then to fund 24-hour, 365-day mental health clinicians in both the northern Humboldt County and southern Humboldt County and central Humboldt County to where they can be responsive, because we're going to more mental health calls than we would really like to do. And I agree with you. We're not the best people to handle it, but the county thinks right now, we're the only people to handle it, unless there's missed personnel that are working. So I totally agree with you.
Okay. Well, if there are no additional questions, I want to thank.
There is a
Sheriff.
24-hour behavioral health crisis line with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Yes, if you want to call, if we can put a phone up to the person in mental health crisis, then if that would solve the problem. But what we're seeing here is people that are having a mental health breakdown. Oftentimes they need intervention wherever they are, and so that means that someone's going to have a face-to-face conversation with that person. And then sometimes when someone is in a mental health crisis, they're not acting accordingly, or they may become violent. And so you have to have the ability to be responsive to that. There's other times when people are passive and they're able to communicate and to go along with someone like from the MISS program or a clinician in here that are compliant and they know they need help. And so they'll go to the hospital, they'll go to separate environments, they'll go somewhere to get help. But there's got to be, like I said, a multidisciplinary approach, and that's based upon how the person's acting. And so we would love to de-escalate all these situations, but in reality, based upon substance abuse, mental illness, there's sometimes when human nature is unpredictable, and we have to have the ability to respond to the person, in crisis in a manner that's safe for them and safe for the community.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheriff Hunt.
Thank you
for joining us and being so generous with your time. And appreciate your opinion
for sure. Anytime. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And I'll let you know if there's DOJ does get back.
Okay.
We should know, they should publish it online before even I knew about it. So, okay, anyway. Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I wasn't expecting to wait this long to allow our newest member to introduce himself, but we had some interesting discussions there. Peter, would you like to introduce yourself? He's the newest commissioner who is sick on his first meeting and with us tonight.
Well, just pleased to be here. Actually learned a lot already this evening.
Okay, well, we'll put you to work very shortly. Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested, just a little bit of background. I know that you oversee the Humboldt Area Foundation. Kind of what is your connection, maybe your interests, or what brings you to the Human Rights Commission? And maybe we should all say at least a little bit, just to
Yeah, it'd be nice to hear.
to get even with you.
Yeah. I come from a refugee family. My parents were always involved in refugee and human rights issues, and so I don't remember a time in my life where things talked about here haven't been important. Probably like everyone here, a million interests. And at one point, when we were having just a rash of murders, of Latino men, and in my position, Humboldt Area Foundation, I tried to get attention to that as a public health crisis, and both in the county and out of the county. You couldn't do it. Right? I mean, you couldn't question. It got too close to the sanctity of the water industry. Right? And I think we had 16 murders and no public response to it. So I guess I'm aware that, justice can play out in very funny ways. It's not always, liberals for justice and conservatives not for justice. And, there's lots of ways that would cover up the right things that you have, right? Right now, on the senior news advisory body, we're looking at healthcare, and the big shift in healthcare up here has been out of the area, people leaving the area. And that IPA, Independent Physicians Association, that administers a lot of local insurance, and people getting treatment out of the area used to be one of many things they covered. Now it is the line and the road. I mean, it is the majority of what insurance is going towards. And of course, you think about health is a human right, medical care is a human right. When you leave the area, the insurance is going to pay the same whether you're going to Stanford or Providence. But if you're low income, if you don't have family to transport you, the cost of getting medical care is now being shifted to low income people. You can guarantee if you look into it far that people are dying because of that. But again, it's not on, that's something that's forefront. We used to have strong advocacy around healthcare here, and we've really lost it in this area. And so people are, their attention isn't being brought to, that issue. Besides, I have a ton to learn. I don't come here with a single burning issue. I have a global concern that international law that came out of the Nuremberg trials is really no longer being enforced anywhere. So crimes against humanity, clearly it's not a rule of law that the world's enforcing. And, so that's the big picture, and then it, gets to the local area. So, but I'm, I have so much to learn. I'm a tiny piece of it, and you're right in the middle of it. So yeah, I learned a lot even this evening. That's great.
Well, we're happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, all right. Are there any other commissioner notices or comments to share?
Are we doing anything at Festejando a week from Saturday?
We are taking one.
We are taking, thank you. Well, I have some Spanish easy voter guides that if you would like to have them, I can get for you to put at the table.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And I may, we'll take this up now, the standing committee reports, I assume we have no sanctuary ordinance for this time. Okay. I may have messed up the dating of the message line reports, but I can tell you through the 31st of September, during my time, there was one fall only during the whole time. And unfortunately, that person didn't have a phone number that she was able to share. So I saved it, passed it on, but there's nothing we can really do about that. Jamie has October 1st through the 15th. I don't know if you want to report on what you have so far.
Yeah, I actually deleted that one, just so you know, but I did add it to the log.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, can I first just say welcome, Peter? It's nice to see you here. My name is Jamie. I'm actually with the social work department at Humboldt, and your mom is very manager. So
I thought I recognized
one of my greatest mentors. And when I was doing my doctorate, went and had tea with her many times. Yeah. So I was happy to see her.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today I went on with the first, on the calls, and I had the one that you left. I listened to that log, no phone number. And then today I had 19 calls by 9 a.m. And they were all the same person. And I put a note in there. Did not even listen to all the call. Honestly, I listened to a little bit of each call because it was I didn't have to do that. But I did make a note, have the person's name in there and their phone number. I opted not to call them back because I don't think that there was anything I could have offered them. There wasn't really an issue. They were definitely like in a space of not good, solid mental health. And interesting stories, but,
Well, it was the same person that I had the 42 calls from a couple of months ago,
a woman,
a woman.
yeah,
I mean, I got her name and phone number, and we don't want to trade it here, but
all
can
live on the
maybe-
log, yeah.
I can maybe just send you information, saying.
Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, I don't think there's anything we could have done. There was not really an issue identified that we could do anything about. But, and I don't think calling would have been conducive to helping, but it did prompt me to talk to Jim or text Jim and ask about if we have any kind of like protocol for like calling in a wellness check for someone, or because I was like really worried about her well-being. And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do. I feel like clearly her medications needed to be addressed.
So is there any way that we could call adult protection services and report this?
Well, that's what I was like, Jim suggested I wait till tonight. I'd be happy to do that.
I mean, that is something. Could we do
It was very
concerning. I would hope we would be able to do something like that if we really felt someone.
What kind of information would we need to have?
I mean,
first?
I could just call and give the name and the number. Yeah, I could just call and give the name and number.
Just
have a good relationship with them, yes.
and what's happening.
Yeah.
I had 19 calls in a 24-hour.
Well, actually, so I did my social work intern with APS, and that's what prompted me, because there was a person there who was doing that and calling the sheriff's office and like the police department like that with delusional kind of things. And that's what prompted me to think that. So I actually think APS is a good idea.
I think we should.
And then they would
maybe have
cross
that as
report.
part of our, what we can do, because as you say, anybody should be able to call.
Yeah, totally.
And that is definitely, something that is unusual.
Yeah. He was like, oh my gosh, what happened? That 19 calls?
Yeah.
And then I
I
was
think we
like,
should
wow.
feel free to,
I'm happy to do that. I can do that tomorrow.
that doesn't happen often, but it
Yeah.
might be just the right time to
Yeah,
intervene.
I think it might be.
Okay. I can do that.
Carol is on the phones, at the moment. Bird is signed up for November 1st through the 15th.
Yes.
Oh, you showed that twice, okay. Would anybody like to volunteer for the 16th through the 30th?
I thought someone did at the last meeting.
Oh, you were the,
I was the only.
You wanna-
Carol, I think Carol signed it because I put a note that Carol's next.
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, okay, well,
Well, Carol's listed for the 16th to 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is, but no, I meant the end of November.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 16th.
I guess nobody did. So
No, we just want this.
that's,
well, I will. I'll do that. And, anybody
you need
interested
to
in?
learn, so we can do it.
Yeah, I think I actually come to some meetings before.
Respect.
These are, we have a phone number that people call, we hope they'll give us enough information to contact them back. That sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes we can't give legal advice, so we can give, maybe some directions.
And that's from our card that Rick held up, the resource card, that gives us a lot of things that we can recommend to them.
Right.
Depending on what it is. Well, if it's from the jail, we refer it to Larry.
basically link them up with someone who maybe has the expertise to follow up further with that.
I think, yes.
Well, we'll look at December, what our next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, in the end of November.
I just volunteered
Oh, that's
for the 16th through the 30th. Okay, the ad hoc committee reports, start with the cultural awareness Indigenous people committee. We had a situation yesterday where we had a Zoom meeting, but we didn't have our chair there. So we talked for a little while. Some of what we talked about, Lisa was able to cover when the sheriff was with us. But there is a letter that I shared with you without much explanation. But it is a letter that has been, I hope, has been circulated to the tribes in the past. I didn't have a date on what was sent to me.
I think it was 2023 is what I saw. And when I downloaded it, it was a 2023 date.
Okay, I think the committee ought to take this up again and update it to the current situation and perhaps reissue it. If we didn't get any response from the tribes, then we should try again. This is my belief. So that's
So I'd like to say that it came out of committee when I was chairing, and then it never got acted on by our board collectively. So it never went to the tribes. So I think if we can approve the letter, is the step that needed to be taken. So it did get circulated. It didn't come on the agenda for action. So I think that if we can submit it for an action item for the next meeting would be the appropriate, step. And then it would go out to the tribes and to the board of, well, it's supposed to go to the county board of the supervisors. For them to reach out to the tribes, or unless I'm sorry, I shouldn't be driving and talking, but I am. In any event, but if I recall that it's encouraging the board of supervisors to appoint a liaison, a native liaison between the board of supervisors and the tribes, and or that there be some type of relationship between the county board of supervisors and the tribes as co-governance entities that could go after service dollars for grants or whatever related to issues surrounding human rights and the list of things that we do and cover. But I think right now it's submitted as an action item. If there's any things that need to be changed or recommendations from the board, it was supposed to be reported out as an action item to our full board, then to go out. So it never went out anywhere.
And thank you for the clarification. First,
I think we need to take a look at the letter and perhaps adjust it so that it is a letter to the Board of Supervisors that we are advising them to do this. Because I don't really think that we can advise the tribes to do something that we haven't asked to be part of something that we haven't asked the Board of Supervisors to do. And we are advisory to the board. So what I'd like to suggest is that everybody take a look at it and see about perhaps some amendments to the letter that we can then approve next time.
I think that's a good approach, and that will give the committee time to take another look at whatever we receive from you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Technology Committee has no reports this evening. Free speech versus hate crimes.
We continue to meet. We are at this point looking at developing a toolkit for people who are open to alternative ideas and willing to talk to people with alternative ideas who may not feel really the confidence and the skill to do that. So we're looking to develop a toolkit for meeting those kinds of issues and then having a forum of people who would see themselves as wanting to talk to people with alternative ideas, but wanting to have a little bit more skill, confidence, and foundation to do that effectively. So that's at the moment kind of what we're thinking about. We meet again, I think it's on October 23rd.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Any questions for Rick? All right. The next committee report would be homelessness, behavioral health.
we didn't meet, but we, gotten some information at least from our sheriff today, so that was interesting.
Okay, and the next committee report would be the Youth Human Rights Commission.
Jim, hold on.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand, but anyway, raising my hand. Thank you. On the homelessness, there was I had attended a couple of meetings, and we were trying to hold the county to the board of supervisors to take action for Guy, if you can help me remember, because I remember us having this discussion about them supposed to be doing something about homelessness, and that we were asking them to respond within a certain time, and then I feel like it just got dropped. And I wanted to know what we're doing on behalf of the homeless people, with, I guess, either extra funding or what was going to be done, because here we are, we're going to go right into winter again. And I'm not sure what services are being offered to people. So anyway, I just want to kick that up again and see where we're at with what our recommendations are, because those are like crisis situations that I'm hoping that we get more directly involved if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have any comment with that?
Okay, we talked about a lot of stuff, but we'll
Okay.
need to address it.
The next report would be on the Youth Human Rights Commission. Jamie?
Yeah, Jim and I attended a meeting with the youth briefly 2 weeks ago. Thank you. And we were kind of just touching base, trying to get on with a regular meeting schedule and a plan. It was very clear they've lost their club sponsor, their faculty club sponsor. So that's been a little bit challenging, but we talked to Kente at CR, and he's letting us use the multicultural center to meet. Currently we're meeting in a small space, and we have Zoom access, which is nice because it'll increase our accessibility. But he's let us know that if we outgrow that space because of interest and conversation, we can move into the larger space, or they'll find us one. So we at least have someone on site who's helping with facilities and technology access. We did agree to meet on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month with the youth from 4:30 to 5:30, and there's a Zoom link. It was really clear that we didn't have our leader there, our chair, the youth who's kind of taking the leadership role. He was sick, but if they asked for kind of some training, I had said, like, we want to support you, but we don't want to tell you what to do. And they were kind of like, we're kids, we don't really know what to do. So they asked for some training. So I'm hoping to call together the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee to come up with maybe a training plan for them on how to develop that organization. But I was kind of waiting for you to get backward. So I'll be calling that, and then we'll come up with that. But I did tell them on the 10th, I'll do a little bit of a training for them, and then we'll do some activity to get them. I'll give them some information. We'll do an activity to facilitate them coming up with some decision making to move us forward.
You said 2nd and 4th Thursday?
Yeah, so the next one's on the 10th.
And at what time did we arrive at?
4:30 to 5:30, and that's.
I might be able to be on Zoom with that one.
Yeah.
And when you say training, what do you have in mind? How can we help them? I do a lot of training with,
I know.
Your name work and communication and so forth, and board governance. But I don't know how much, maybe you and I need to email and give me an idea of what.
Yeah, I think you and I should talk about it and see what makes sense for you to do. And I'm wondering if even Peter has some information that might be useful to them when we kind of identify the needs.
And the 10th is really not a very good day for me because I have too much going on between now and the 20th. But after that, I would be happy to see what I could develop for them. And I would want to do the training in person,
Yeah, for sure.
but I also might be able to do Zooms, so.
Yeah,
See that I have that Zoom link.
I'm not sure, but I'll send it to you.
Okay,
They created it, so,
yeah.
you were supposed to be included, but if you don't have it, I'll send it to you.
Well, I may have it. I
Yeah.
just.
You're definitely on the list for them. So they're doing great. They have a very organized person who's taking notes and is a communication scheduler. They have another person who's kind of chairing and someone who's helping him and as a backup. So it was good. We had a good turnout. We just didn't have much to talk about in that meeting because we were missing a few key people. But we did get some dates and we got that. In addition, just today, I submitted to the Humboldt Area Foundation Youth Leadership Fund for a $1,500 grant to support their work in this developmental year. So I'm hoping that we can help with like maybe some transportation costs for some folks who come from there's some folks coming from Southern Humboldt, and also maybe some snacks since it's after school. And then like materials for like outreach and marketing and stuff as we move forward. So hopefully we'll hear back about that.
Where we are, one of the.
Thank you very much.
The next two,
We'd love to have.
Yeah, that's, I think, this is a very good person to put on that committee. So,
we'll talk. The next two ad hoc committees were intended to be reported on in tandem, but because Larry is ill tonight, I think we will postpone the reports and discussion on neutral observers and rapid response. However, because this was posted, we do have public comment that was given to me by mail, which we don't get very often, but I will read it so that it is relevant to the proposal to have some sort of a neutral observers group. I don't think I will reveal the name of the person that sent it, although that would be fine with me. But anyway, this is public comment. Dear Humboldt, dear Human Rights Commissioners, I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the Humboldt County Human Rights Commission's proposal to implement a neutral observer program. As someone deeply involved in defending civil liberties, I want to emphasize the risks such a program could present to the fundamental right to dissent. The role of legal observers, as established by organizations like the National Lawyers Guild, NLG, is to monitor and document the activities of law enforcement and protests and actions. This documentation serves a critical purpose to hold the state accountable and to ensure that our First Amendment rights are upheld and that law enforcement does not use excessive force against protesters. Legal observers are trained legal personnel and are present at protests to report on the facts, not for the purpose of interfering with protest activities, but to protect demonstrators from violations of their rights. In contrast, a so-called neutral observer program risks undermining the essential function, this essential function, by providing an avenue for individuals to surveil or report on protesters themselves. This shifts the focus away from protecting civil liberties and instead opens the door to potential misuse, where the act of observing becomes an opportunity to tattle on those between the community and those who aim to protect civil rights. I strongly urge the Commission to reconsider this proposal. A truly effective program would center on ensuring that untrained observer, I'll start that sentence again. A truly effective program would center on ensuring that peaceful observers are safeguarded from state overreach not surveilled by additional layers of potentially biased or untrained observers. As we've seen time and again, a well-trained legal observer program already provides the critical accountability necessary in these situations. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention to this important matter, sincerely. We generally don't respond directly to public comment, but we appreciate the input. You also,
Can I share a little bit about?
I think since you shared it with me, why don't you share it with
Yeah,
kind of in the same vein?
it is. So I did contact, in the spring semester on when everything happened on campus, there was what I thought actually was a neutral observer training, but I'm actually not well versed in the differences. I'm getting more well versed, so that was actually a helpful email to me. But in the spring, there was actually a legal observer training done by the CFA, the California Faculty Association. And so I had reached out just to say, like, hey, we're talking about this. I don't know what you're doing, but I don't want to duplicate. And can we just see, like, come together and have a conversation? So yesterday I talked to the president of the CFA, local CFA, Tony Salvaggio, who is the one who coordinated the legal observer training with the NLG, who came down from Portland to do that in the spring. They're coming again in October. And he let me know that there is an active and existing legal observer group here in Humboldt who are trained and meet, I think, quarterly, and then are activated as needed. He actually expressed that there would be interest and support from at least from his group of people he was talking to. I don't know who he was, he said CFA, on a neutral observer group being run through the Human Rights Commission. However, that he would want them to be trained and have like protocol and be in partnership. And he also offered to be part of that ad hoc committee conversation. So I sent an email today introducing him to Jim and Larry, and hopefully we can have a meeting and have a conversation about it. But it was really just a learning. He explained a lot about the differences to me yesterday, and that was useful. And I thought, oh, this would be good for her. So
I think actually, if this was on the agenda, because it was on the agenda, we can respond to the comment. And I think that this person needs to understand that it would definitely be that they would be trained. It would be something that would not be allowed to just go out there and observe. That this would be a very specifically well-trained group of people. So and we haven't even really got to all of it yet. I don't think we should say we're not going to do it because he doesn't think it's a good idea. I think we pursue this in a way that it shows that it can be a program that is unbiased and has trained people to see that nothing goes wrong, that their human rights and their free speech rights are upheld, but that they don't go beyond that, and that the sheriff's department is doing appropriate work and so forth. That's what a neutral observer would be trained to do. And I think it's important that we continue to look at this and make it clear that this is a program that is not just willy-nilly. This is a very serious program with good training.
I would like to add, since we are having a discussion about this, at the Humboldt Equity Consortium meeting yesterday, one of the people present who is affiliated with the Humboldt Area Foundation and is a legal observer expressed concerns, starting with the name. She thought that we ought to select a different type of name that embodied more of less of a vested interest in the outcome. And I think we need to speak with her some more to get some better ideas how to differentiate between legal observers and neutral observers.
Right.
And she was concerned that there wouldn't be the confidence in our neutrality. And I tried to assure her that we haven't made any decisions at all yet. We're just in the very early stages of discussing
I
this.
think there's something in this community I picked up on in the conversation about previous trainings to be neutral observers, that there's not trust in that. And so I told Tony the same thing, like we are on a discovery place right now. And if it's not something that's needed and not something that aligns when we get to that point, then we'll discuss that at that point. But like right now, if we're just on a discovery, I'm enjoying learning about it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, any other discussion on ad hoc committee reports? We made one agenda adjustment. So the discussion of bylaws changes will not take place tonight. But we do have one other new item that's a proposal. And to give everybody a little bit, let's see if I can share this document. We have a certain amount of funds which partly came from Board of Supervisors support for taking up action against human trafficking in Humboldt County. Some of that money has been spent, a lot of it has not. Now we have a request from EPI, which is Empower and Invest, which is the organization I've been attending meetings for about a year and a half, put on by Katrina Taylor. Keith Taylor was her father and a former commission chairperson. Anyway, they have a proposal that they would like support from us on. It's a financial request. And basically, can I even move this then? Looks like I can't. Well, it's a funding proposal for a human trafficking survivor to be sent to Phoenix, Arizona to a project called the Just Conference. This would empower this person to attend and grow from the learning experience at this conference. It's October 21st through the 25th in Phoenix, Arizona. Attending this conference will provide the survivor with networking opportunities with professionals in the field, access to cutting-edge research and best practices, potential career advancement opportunities, personal empowerment and healing through shared experiences, and 5, skills and knowledge to better advocate for themselves and for others. The specifics of the funding request are as follows. Car rental, $127.45. Food per diem, $315 for 5 days.
Was that total?
That is for 5 days.
Okay.
Room and board, $198.91 for a total of $641.36. In all honesty, in that meeting, I had indicated a possibility that we might be able to support them to the tune of $400. And then I got the specifics of the proposal and they exceed that amount. So the chair would entertain a motion regarding this request. We do have the funds to do it. And go ahead.
Okay, and I would propose that we do support the funds requested for the individual to attend the conference in Arizona.
So that would be $641.36.
I'll second.
There's a second. Okay.
2 seconds.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course. Yes, go ahead.
Is this something we do?
Normally, we don't have any money, to be quite honest. And this is carryover funds that we've had in our account for 2 or 3 years. And
For this specific,
for this specific,
Yeah.
okay, correct.
for Katrina's, she was the person who proposed all of this through EPI, and that's how the grant was made.
Okay,
So this actually furthers what the funding does.
that's correct.
Yes.
That's sufficient. Any other discussion? Or questions?
I think she's really doing, trying to do a really good job in communicating with people and getting good things done in the community for survivors, particularly survivors of abuse. And I think this, getting out in the world and finding out what other people are doing is always a big help to a group, and particularly if we're so isolated up here. So I think it's a really good suggestion.
Okay, then the question after this. I'm sorry. We did not vote. That's not what I was gonna say. I can't think so. Anyway, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It's passed unanimously. They'll be very happy. And any proposed agenda items for the November meeting?
Well, I think we go back to the neutral observers and the
Right.
rapid response and be sure that we try to be sure that we have something on that.
Do we want to bring in a guest speaker about it, maybe?
I'm sorry.
Do we want to bring in a guest about it, or,
Do you think
I mean, like Tony could come, I'm sure, but,
Well, that might be a good idea.
this might be
yeah.
and we wouldn't put him as, well,
CFA meetings are at the same time.
Oh, are they?
Missing it.
Oh, maybe he
Oh.
can come.
But yeah, well, I don't think it's not there tonight, this is second.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, we might ask them.
why don't you explore
Or
the,
maybe it's Wilson.
you want
I
to
can
explore the
explore it, yeah.
possibility?
Or maybe he has an idea of somebody who might want to.
That's also
Yeah.
a good approach.
But I think it would be a good idea to get some more information about how we might work with the legal observers, or how they might help us. And what is out there for training and so forth. I mean, is there any training for neutral observers that
Right.
anybody knows anything about?
Yes, sir.
Tony,
So
did
just to follow up, and I think that with Larry here, that will help. When we had the neutral observers back in the 70s, that was organized through the ACLU. We had trainers from Oregon who came and who went through the program, and it was a strong focus on being neutral. There was no attempt to in any way target one side or the other. It was, we had the tree sitters and those who were protesting the conference, the logging. We had loggers who were there. We simply kept, we just kept videos of anything that looked like it might be beginning, just to simply have that information. So it was not that there was any target or any goal that we had.
Yeah.
It was just simply to be able to record what was there, and if there were any problems, to have a record of them. And I think one thing that kind of helped is that when they saw these cameras out there, it kind of slowed things down a little bit. There were a couple of cases where people were starting to get really mad, and as the pictures were taken, it just sort of toned down. So again, I mean, there's a lot that can go into neutral observers, but the intention is to be truly neutral and not in any way to, to target one side or another, to give a reason for undermining someone's position.
Can I ask a question? In any of those cases where neutral observers were present and they did their recording of whatever they saw, did they report any of this to anybody?
If there was no litigation, it would be used for if there were litigation. If there was no complaints, no problems, no. It was simply the archive was just simply kept for the various events that we went to. None of them were ever used. And that was, I think, partly what the hope was, is that we would be there and there would be no basis, no reason for going on. But they would be then available for, prosecution, for defense, for whoever, to use and to follow up if there had been a reason for that.
But that might be the reason that some people distrust it.
Yeah.
Because of saying, you took my picture,
It's intimidation.
yeah, it's intimidation.
Okay, well,
So
something
that may be part of it, and that's a good piece of information to know, because maybe that isn't part of the way a new project would be proposed. Maybe that wouldn't be what it would be.
Well, that's, I think,
done.
I almost do, so I think we would need to
But
explore
that's
that.
part of the discovery, as you
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
about all of this, and to look at all the pros and cons of what was there last time, and then see what we come up with. And I mean, it was at least 20 years ago.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a long time ago.
Probably.
And things have changed a lot, and there may be a lot of different trainings now.
Sure.
So I'll have this ongoing discussion
Right. Yep.
and it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting.
But I know I did not think about, when I asked Tony if he would come, we did not talk timing, so that's good insight. But Tony does know about those. Anthony Salvaggio, he was definitely involved in the timber
Mhm.
observer situation too. So he might be a good person. Sure. Add to like why, and he was fully aware why there might be concerns and why there might be, but also supportive of like things can be done a different way or right way. So.
Well, if there is no further discussion on any item, we'll call the meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.